Hello everyone, I am Jericho Kalawan and I am going to discuss about the Presidential Decree or PD number 1096. I am going to tackle only about chapter 1 to 5 because there will be an assigned person who will tackle about the corresponding chapters. So, before I start, I have a question. How do you think Presidential Decree was made and what is this all about? So, to understand it, let's start. In order to understand it, let us understand these two, which is the Republic Act number 6541 and Presidential Decree 1096. So let's start by defining what is the Republic Act number 6541. So Republic Act 6541, known as the National Building Code of the Philippines, provides all building and structures as a framework of minimum standard and requirements. So it is required for the safe construction of all buildings and structures in the country. I guess we are familiar with the National Building Code, right? So this will be our basis in designing a structure or a building, and we should follow it as it guides us to provide safety on a structure. So it was enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the Philippines in Congress last August 26, 1972. So we are done in defining the Republic Act 6541. Now let's proceed in defining the Presidential Decree PD number 1096. So what is Presidential Decree PD number 1096? So it is known as the National Building Code and was enacted on February 19, 1977. It was to embody up-to-date and modern technical knowledge on building designs, construction, use, occupancy, and maintenance. Um, Stated as adopting a national building code of the Philippines, thereby revising Republic Act number 6541. So we tackle about the Republic Act 6541 a while ago, right? It simply means that the Presidential Decree number 1096 is just the revision of the Republic Act number 6541. So by the virtue of power vested on Ferdinand E. Marcos, President of the Philippines, he hereby ordered and decree the revision of the Republic Act number 6541. So what do you think is the reason why he wants a revision of it? So the following are the reasons why Ferdinand E. Marcos wants a revision of it. First is the country's accelerating economic and physical development coupled with urbanizations and population growth makes imperative the formulation and adopting of a uniform building code which shall embody up-to-date and modern technical knowledge on the building designs, construction use, occupancy, and maintenance. So President Ferdinand Marcos wants a revision of it because he believes that the modern technical knowledge of an engineer should be applied on their design as we are experiencing urbanization and development. Second, while there is Republic Act number 6541 entitled An Act to Ordain and Institute a National Building Code of the Philippines, the same does not conform with the development, goal, and infrastructure program of the government and does not adequately provide for all the technological requirements of buildings and structures in terms of up-to-date design and construction standards and criteria. So it means the Presidential Decree number 1096 contains the updated and revised terms considering the um, applicable advancement being observed to improve the previous act. So we should now use this revised one, which is the PD number 1096. Third, in the formulation of new national building code, it is desire and policy of the government to avail of and harness the technical expertise and professional know-how to men not only in the public but in the private sectors as well. So this means that this PD 1096 should be adopted by all the professionals doing their job related to the building construction, both in government or private entities. So now let's talk about the Presidential Decree number 1096, the 5 chapters. So first, let's talk about the chapter 1, which is all about the general provisions. So in section 101, which is the title, this decree shall be known as the National Building Code of the Philippines and shall hereinafter be referred to be as the code. In section 102, declaration of the policy, it is hereby declared to be the policy of the state to safeguard life, health, property, and public welfare. The purpose of this code to provide for all building and structure a framework of minimum standard and requirements to regulate and control their location, site design, quality of materials, construction, use, occupancy, and maintenance. So the implementation of this code is for the safety of anybody that is involved in the construction of the building. So this law will monitor the safety, whatever construction that will be erected. So we should always remember that safety should be always considered in a construction. Section 103, Scope and Application. So the provision of this code shall apply to the design, location, siting, construction, alteration, repair, conversion, use, occupancy, maintenance, moving, demolition of any addition to public and private buildings and structures except traditional indigenous family dwelling as defined here. So this law is not only involved in the design and construction of building, but also in repairs, demolition, maintenance, and more for both public and private buildings, except for the indigenous family dwelling. The building and or structure constructed before the approval of the code shall not be affected. This code shall apply only to proportion to be altered and added, converted, or repaired. So this building that are about to construct or so the building that are about to construct or repair after the approval of this code is the only building or structures that could be affected, and the existing building won't that be affected. Section 104, the general building requirements. So first, all buildings or structure as well as accessory facilities thereto shall conform in all respect to the principle of the safe construction and must be suited to the purpose for which they are designed. Next, the building or structure intended to be used for the manufacture and or production of any kind of article or product shall be observed adequate environment safeguard. And last is buildings or structures and all parts thereof as well as all facilities found therein shall be maintained in safe sanitary and good working condition. So the main point here is to have a safe construction of a building. It should have safe sanitary and good working condition. Section 105, Site Requirements. So the land or site upon which will be constructed any building or structure shall be sanitary, hygienic, or safe. So not only the building should be hygienic and safe, but also the land or site as well. In the case of site or buildings intended for use as human habitation, the same shall be at a safe distance from streams or bodies of water or sources or air considered to be polluted. So example of the polluted places are near volcano and volcanic sites. Buildings should also away from the potential sources of fire or explosion as it is not safe in these areas. Next is the section 106, which is the definition. As used in this code, the word, terms, and phrases enumerated in Annex A hereof shall have the meaning or definition correspondingly provided therein. So we are done with the chapter 1. Let's proceed to the chapter 2, which is the administration and enforcement. So section 201, responsibility for administration and enforcement. So the administration and enforcement of the provision of this code, including the imposition of penalties for administrative violations thereof, is hereby vested in the Secretary of Public Work, Transportation, and Communication, hereinafter referred to as the Secretary. So Section 202, the technical staff. The Secretary is hereby authorized to constitute and provide in his department a professional staff composed of highly qualified architects, engineers, and technicians who possess diversified and professional experience in the field of building design and construction. So Section 203, which is the general power and function of the Secretary under this code. So Secretary shall exercise the following general powers and function. First, to formulate policies, plans, standards, and guidelines on building design, constructing, use, occupancy, and maintenance. Second, to issue and promulgate rules and regulations to implement the provisions of this code and ensure compliance with policies, plans, standards, and guidelines. Third is to evaluate, review, approve, or take final action on changes and or amendments to existing referral code as well as on the incorporation of other referral codes which are not yet expressly made part of this code. And last, which is the fourth one, prescribe and fix. So the amount of fees and other charges that the building official shall collect in connection with the performance of the regulatory function. So Section 204, professional and technical assistance. So the Secretary, with the assistance of his technical staff, shall provide such professional, technical, scientific, and other services including testing laboratories and facilities. And provided that the Secretary may secure such services as he may deem necessary from the other agencies of the national government and may make arrangement for the compensation of such services. So Section 205, which is the building officials. So building official shall be responsible for carrying out the provisions of this code in the field as well as the enforcement of orders and decision made pursuant thereto. So Secretary may designate incumbent public work districts engineers, city engineers, and municipal engineer act as building official in their respective areas of jurisdiction. So the designation made by the Secretary under this section shall continue until regular position of the building official are provided or unless sooner terminated for cause provided by law or decree. So Section 206, qualification of building official. So no person shall be appointed as a building official unless he possesses the following qualification. So first, you should be a Filipino citizen and have a good moral character. So a duly registered architect or civil engineer. You should be a member of good standing of a duly accredited organization of his profession for not less than 2 years. So in a relation to the civil engineering, you should be a member, for example, Philippine Institute of Civil Engineer, or termed as PICE. So fourth one is has at least 5 years of diversified and professional experience in building, design, and construction. So you should have enough experience on construction to be qualified. And so Section 207, duties of building official. So building official shall be primarily responsible for the enforcement of the provisions of this code as well as of the implementing rules and regulation issued. He is the official charged with the duties of issuing building permits. So it is mentioned here the building permit. Before you can construct a building, it should have a building permit. If a construction is being started without a building permit, building official will check your location or site and they will impose fines for not following the rules. So building official may enter any building at all reasonable time to inspect and determine compliance with the requirements of this code and the term and condition provided for in the building permitted as issued. So even the owner of the construction has a building permit, and when the building official will be checking in the construction for compliance and it fails, then certain fees will also be expected. So when any building work is found to be contrary to the When any building work is found to be contrary to the provisions of this code, the building official may order the work stop and prescribe the term and or condition when the work will be allowed to resume. So to keep us away from this problem, the owner of the construction should follow what is stated in the building permit that has been approved. So building official is authorized to order the discontinuance of the occupancy or use of any building or structure or portion thereof found to be occupied or used contrary to the provision of this code. So even if the building has been completed, but after checking it by the building official and found out that it doesn't follow what is stated in the building permit, then the building official has the right to stop the owner of the building using it until they are going to comply what is stated in the building permit. So section 208, it is all about fees. Every building official shall keep a permanent record and accurate account of all fees and other charges fixed and authorized by the secretary to be collected and received under this code. So subject to existing budgetary, accounting, and auditing rule and regulations, the building official is hereby authorized to retain not more than 20% of his collection for the operating expenses of his office. So the remaining 80% shall be deposited with the provincial, city, or municipal treasurer and shall accrue to the general fund of the province, city, or municipality concerned. So under section 209, which is the exemption, so public building and traditional indigenous family dwelling shall be exempt from paying of building permit fees. So there are only two exempted in paying building permit. These are the public building and traditional indigenous family dwelling. So as used in this code, the term additional indigenous family dwelling means dwelling intended for the use and occupancy by the family of the owner only and constructed of native materials such as bamboo, nipa, logs, or lumber, the total cost of which does not exceed 15,000 pesos. So if the occupancy is being made with those materials and does not exceed the total cost of 15,000 pesos, they will be considered as the indigenous family dwelling and they are exempted to the building permit fees. So section 210, use of income from fees. So any provision of law to the contrary notwithstanding, the secretary is hereby authorized to prescribe the procedure for the use of all net income realized by the office of the building official from the collection of fees and charges not exceeding 20% thereof in accordance with section 208. Such income may be used to cover necessary operating expenses, including the purchase of equipment, supplies, and materials, traveling expenses, obligation expenses, and sheriff's fees, and payment to other prior years' obligations not adequately funded, subject to existing budgetary and auditing rules and regulations. So it should always be 20% or less. So the building official should be careful in spending the income from fees as it is only 20% of the fees and it is under budget and under auditing rules and regulations. So section 211, implementing rules and regulation. The secretary shall formulate necessary rules and regulations and adopt design and construction standards and criteria for building and other structures. Such standards, rules, and regulations shall take effect after their publication once a week for 3 consecutive weeks in the newspaper of general circulation. So section 212, administrative fines for the violation of any of the provision of this code or any of the rules or regulations issued thereunder. The Secretary is thereby empowered to prescribe and impose fines not exceeding 10,000 pesos. So Section 213, which is the penal provisions, it shall be unlawful for any person, firms or corporation to erect, construct, enlarge, alter, repair, move, improve, remove, convert, demolish, equip, use, occupy, or maintain any building or structure or cause the same to be done contrary or in violation of any provision of this code. Any person, firms, or corporation who shall violate any of the provision of this code and or commit any act hereby declared to be unlawful shall, upon conviction, be punished by a fine of not more than 20,000 pesos or by imprisonment of not more than 2 years or both such fine and imprisonment. So the owner of the building or the contractor of it should always follow the national building of the Philippines. So if you don't want this to happen, let's take time to understand the National Building Code and let's apply it. Section 214, dangerous and ruinous building or structures. So dangerous buildings are those which are herein declared as such or are structurally unsafe or not provided with safe egress or which constitute a fire hazard or otherwise dangerous to human life. So if the building is not safe to use, then we can declare it as a dangerous building. So Section 215, abatement of dangerous buildings. When any buildings or structures is found or declared to be dangerous or ruinous, the building official shall order its repair or demolition depending upon the degree of danger to life, health, or safety. So, they will first investigate the building, then they can decide what to do in the building. It's either they will just repair it or they will do a total demolition of it. So, under Section 216, other remedies. So, the right action and remedies provided in this code shall be in addition to any and all other right of action and remedies that may be available under existing laws. So now let's proceed to Chapter 3, which talks about the permit and inspection. So Section 301, building permits. So no person, firm, or corporation, including any agency or instrumentality of the government, shall erect, construct, alter, repair, move, convert, or demolish any building or structure or cause the same to be done without first obtaining a building permit. As like what I've said earlier, prior to start the construction of a building, the owner of the construction should always have the building permit first. So, and they can obtain this building permit to the building official assigned in the place where the building is to be constructed. Section 302, application for permits. So, how can they obtain this permit? So, to obtain a building permit, the applicant shall file an application in writing the prescribed form from the office of the building official, and every application shall provide at least the following information. So, these four below should be visible in the application. Then, this four is first, a description of the work to be covered by the permit applied for. Second, certified true copy of the CTC covering the lot on which the proposed work is to be done. If the application is not the registered owner, in addition to the TCT, a copy of the contract or lease shall be submitted. Third is the use or occupancy for which proposal work is intended. And fourth, estimated cost of the proposed work and to be submitted together with such application are at least 5 sets of corresponding plans and specifications prepared, signed, and sealed by the engineer. Section 303, processing of building permits. So, in processing an application for a building permit, the building official shall see to it that the applicant satisfies and conforms with approved standards, requirements, and regulations promulgated in accordance with the provision of this code. If it is being approved by the building official, then you can have your building permit and you can start your building the structure. Section 304, Issuance of the Building Permit. When satisfied that the work described in an application for building permit and the plans to the requirements of this code and other pertinent rules and regulations, the building official shall, within 15 days from payment of the required fees by the applicant, issue the building permit applied for. The building official may issue a permit for the construction of only a part or portion of a building or structure whenever the plans and specifications submitted together with the application do not cover the entire building or structure. So it means that if your application satisfies all the requirements, then the building official can give you the permit. Approved plans and specifications shall not be changed, modified, or altered without the approval of the building official, and the work shall be done strictly in accordance thereto. So if your plan has been approved and you want to change something in your plan, you should have to inform building official about the changes you've made. Section 305, Validity of Building Permits. So the issuance of the building permit shall not be construed as an approval or authorization to the permittee to disregard or violate any of the provisions of this code. A building permit issued under the provision of this code shall expire and become null and void if the building or work authorized therein is not commenced with a period of 1 year from the date of such permit, or if the building or work so authorized is suspended or abandoned at any time after it has been commenced for a period of 120 days. So once you get your building permit, you should have start the construction, because if you will start the construction after 1 year, your building permit will not be valid anymore. So section 306, non-issuance, suspension, or revocation of building permits. So the building official may order or cause the non-issuance, suspension, or revocation of building permits on any or all of the following reasons or grounds. First is error found in the plans and specifications. Second, incorrect or inaccurate data or information supplied. 3. Non-compliance with the provisions of this code or of any rule of regulation. So you should be careful in submitting your application for building permit and avoid these 3. Notice of non-issuance, suspension, or revocation of building permit shall always be made in writing stating the reason or ground therefore. Section 307, Appeal. Within 15 days from the date of receipt of advice of the non-issuance, suspension, or revocation of permit, the applicant permittee may file an appeal with the secretary, who shall render his decision within 15 days from the date of receipt of notice of appeal. So even if you receive a suspension, you still have a chance to file an appeal within 15 days. So section 308, inspection and supervision of work. The owner of the building who is issued or granted a building permit under this code shall engage the service of a duly licensed architect or civil engineer to undertake the full-time inspection and supervision of the construction. Designing architect or civil engineer is not precluded from conducting inspection of the construction work to check and determine compliance with the plans and specification of the building as submitted. So, in a construction site, civil engineers are free to monitor the ongoing construction if it follows the submitted plan. There shall be kept at the job site at all time a logbook wherein the actual progress of construction. In this logbook, it also includes the data on tests conducted, weather condition, and other pertinent data. Upon completion of the construction, the said licensed architect or civil engineer shall submit the logbook duly signed and sealed to the building official. So, he shall also prepare and submit a certificate of completion of the project stating that the construction of building conforms to the provisions of this code as well as with the approved plans and specifications. Section 309, Certificate of Occupancy. No building shall be used until the building official has issued a certificate of occupancy. A certificate of occupancy shall be issued by the building official within 30 days if after final inspection it is found that the building or structure complies with the provision of this code. So once the structure is completed, the owner of it can't use it unless it has a certificate of occupancy. So, if all provisions are allowed, then you can have your certificate of occupancy within 30 days. So now, let's proceed to Chapter 4, which is the types of construction. So, Section 401, Type of Construction. For purposes of this code, all buildings proposed for construction shall be classified or identified according to the following type. So there are 5 types. So type 1, building shall be a wood construction. The structural element may be any of the materials permitted by this code. Type 2, building shall be of wood construction with protective fire resistance materials and 1 hour fire resistive throughout, except the permanent non-bearing partition. So, what is non-bearing partition? So, these are any walls that divides space in a building, but does not carry any vertical load. So, it doesn't carry load. So, these non-bearing partitions may use fire retardant treated wood within the framing assembly. So when we say fire retardant, it is a substance that is used to slow down or stop the spread of fire. So the type 3 building shall be masonry and wood construction. Structural element may be any of the materials permitted by this code, provided that the building shall be 1 hour fire resistant throughout. Exterior walls shall be made of incombustible fire resistant construction. So we talk about the type 1 and type 2 building, and they are all about wood construction. Now in type 3, it is composed of wood and masonry. So the exterior wall should be made of materials that are not easily to burn. Type 4 building, type 4 building shall be made of steel, iron, concrete, or masonry construction. Wall, ceiling, permanent partition shall be made of incombustible fire-resistant construction. Again, except permanent non-bearing partitions may use fire retardant treated wood within the framing assembly. Type 5, which is the last one. Type 5 building shall be fire resistive. The structural element shall be steel, iron, concrete, or masonry construction. And wall, ceiling, and permanent partition shall be incombustible fire resistive construction. Section 402, changes in type. So, no changes shall be made in the type of construction of any building which would place the building in a different subtype or type of construction unless such building is made to comply with the requirements for such subtype of construction, except when the change is approved by the building official upon showing that the new or proposed construction is less hazardous based on life and fire risk than the existing construction. So Section 403, requirements of type construction. Secretary shall prescribe standards for each type of construction and promulgate rules and regulations. And for the last chapter, which is the chapter 5, requirements of fire zones. So, Section 501, for fire zones defines. So areas within which only certain types of buildings are permitted to be constructed based on their use or occupancy, type of construction, and resistance to the fire. Section 502, buildings located in more than one fire zone. A building or structure which is located partly in one fire zone and partly in another shall be considered to be in the more highly restrictive fire zone when more than one-third of its total floor area is located in such zone. So section 503, move building. Any buildings or structure moved within or into any fire zone shall be made to comply with all requirements for buildings in that fire zone. Section 504, temporary buildings. So temporary buildings such as reviewing stands and other miscellaneous structures conforming to the requirements of this code, and sheds, canopies, and fences used for the protection of the public around in conjunction with construction work may be erected in the fire zones by special permit from the building official for a limited period of time. So section 505, center line of streets. Center line of an adjoining street or alley may be considered an adjacent property line. Distances shall be measured at right angles to the street or alley. Section 506, restrictions on existing building. So, existing building or structure in fire zones that do not comply with the requirements for any building erected therein shall not hereafter be enlarged, altered, remodeled, repaired, or moved except as follows. If such building is entirely demolished, if such building is to be moved outside the limit of the more highly restrictive fire zone, at a zone where the building meets the minimum standards, changes, alteration, and repairs may be made provided that in any 12-month period, the value of the work does not exceed 20% of the value of the existing building, and provided that such changes do not add additional combustible materials, in the opinion of the building official, increase the fire hazard. Next is additional thereto are separated from the existing building by firewall as set forth in subsection 604, and damage from the fire or earthquake, typhoons, or any fortuitous event may be repaired using the same kind of materials of which the building or structure was originally constructed, provided that the cost of such repair shall not exceed 20% of the replacement cost of the building or structure. And Section 507, designation of fire zone. So the Secretary shall promulgate specific restriction for each type of fire zone. Cities and municipalities shall be divided into such fire zones in accordance with local, physical, and spatial framework plans submitted by city or municipal planning and or development bodies. So I think that would be all, and thank you for listening.